Good afternoon, everyone, and hello to everyone, and actually good evening. It's almost 6 p.m. Thank you very much for being with us in this webinar on behalf of the Sharjah Research and Technology Park. I would like to welcome our speakers, Mr. Ahmed Murad from Johnson & Johnson, Senior Director of Technology and Business Development, and also Ms. Sophie Smith, co-founder of NABTA, a women health technology company. I'd like to take this opportunity also to thank our participant and audience to be with us in this interactive session, which we will discuss the status of healthcare post-COVID-19 and the basically the discussions that is taking place around the healthcare industry in general and the trends within the healthcare industry, as well as the opportunities and challenges. I would like to share with you the outline of this session. I will allow my esteemed speaker to maybe say a couple of things about what they are doing, and then we will move to the session where I will present the Sharjah Research and Technology Park for maybe 10 minutes, and then Mr. Ahmed will present Johnson & Johnson and their views about the overall industry and the ecosystem in this industry. And then Sophie will speak about her company, NABTA, and the ecosystem around entrepreneurship and innovation and healthcare with focus on women health. We will allow the last 15 minutes of this session to take question and answer and try to make it more interactive. And then we will close hopefully before the end of the hour. So our session today will be around 50 minutes, and I hope you will enjoy it and you will find it useful. Again, my name is Hussein Al-Mahmoudi, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Sharjah Research and Technology Park, as well as the American University of Sharjah Enterprises. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my colleague and friends here, Mr. Ahmed Murad. The floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen and we can get started. Let me know, please, when you see my screen.
I think, Mr. Ahmed, I was hoping that you will just introduce yourself, yes. And then I'll, yeah. And then
absolutely. So good afternoon and good evening, depending where you're joining from. My name is Ahmed Murad. I'm the Senior Director, Business Technology Leader for the medical devices emerging market at Johnson & Johnson. I work very closely with the business team, both in this region as well as in EMEA and globally, basically to improve health, for humanity. I'll talk more about through the presentation of some of the activities that we work on, but as Mr. Hussein has said, this is more a general healthcare discussion. We hope to get the different perspective of the speaker and potentially some of the interaction we have from the audience. I'm not quite sure if Ms. Sophie, you want to introduce yourself, or should I proceed with the session?
I think Sophie can introduce herself first.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sophie Smith. I am the co-founder and CEO of NABTA Health. NABTA is a hybrid healthcare company for women headquartered in Sharjah Research Technology and Innovation Park. Our focus is on discovering new ways for women to prevent, identify, and manage non-communicable diseases, or in, I guess, layman's terms, underlying health conditions. So things like diabetes, obesity, and then women-only non-communicable diseases like gestational diabetes, polycystic ovary syndrome, etc.
Thank you, Sophie. So with your permissions, I would like to maybe introduce the Sharjah Research and Technology Park to set up the scene, and then we follow up that with Mr. Ahmed's presentation, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Permission granted, Hussein. Proceed.
Thank you very much. So let me try, and I think, where is the, so, can you see my screen now? Hello? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Perfect. So again, welcome to this webinar. The topic of this webinar, as I said, is around healthcare in general and the various opportunities associated with this industry, which is, I think, a hot topic at the moment. And I'm very pleased to have Mr. Ahmed and Sophie with us here today. And thank you again for making the time and being part of this webinar. A quick background about the Sharjah Research and Technology Park. It is an initiative by the Sharjah government to foster innovation and applied research in the country and across the region. As you know, innovation is a key pillar of the UAE government Vision 2030. Every Emirates in the UAE has its own approach toward innovation. We in Sharjah, under the guidance of His Highness, built a whole university city over the past 30 years, where today we pride ourselves to have more than 22 universities and more than 47,000 students from 100 nationalities all in one place. The Sharjah Research and Technology Park is a complement to the university city. It is a 18,000 million square feet piece of land, which is dedicated to research, innovation, and technology development. This is basically the map of the park. It is adjacent to the university city. The beautiful building you see, this is our headquarter, a new headquarter, which we're going to move into it in a month's time. It is an open innovation platform where we bring academia, private sector, and government and try to co-innovate together. What we're trying to do is we have 4 objectives. The first objective is to create and build an innovation ecosystem which will allow for technology development, foster innovation, and allow entrepreneurship to thrive. We hope that through building this innovation ecosystem, which is not only buildings, but also policies and legislation, availability of funds, and also the right triple helix approach, allow for this innovation to thrive. The second thing, we are trying to create and generate employment for our young men and women to be able to excel and develop and hopefully contribute to a regional development as we speak. The third, we want to catalyze a knowledge economy. We believe new technologies, whether in healthcare or artificial intelligence or robotics or 3D printing, are technologies that we can promote and develop in this part of the world. And last but not least, we want to invest for the future. We want to create companies and ventures that hopefully will create economic impact, create jobs, and hopefully create technologies that ensures a sustainable development of this region. We believe in a global vision and a regional mission. We believe in partnerships. So we have partnership with universities, with countries, with ecosystem builders, with companies, with research institutions. We believe in open innovation, and open innovation means you work hand in hand with other sectors to develop a common objectives. We focus on 6 main areas. We focus on water technology, production, design and architecture, mobility, logistics and smart city, digitization, renewable energy and environmental energy technology. One of the key sectors we've also been recently engaging with and promoting is healthcare industry, And that's why we are having today our session, and we have our 2-star guests. Some of the example of the technologies we are promoting and hosting at the park. The first one around agriculture technology. So we are promoting and developing hydroponics technologies and aquaponics technologies, and we are using other type of technologies to support this development, like embedding artificial intelligence in agriculture. So this is a strategic topic that regional government is trying to promote. Another technologies or companies that we are hosting at the park is Virtue, a Spanish company which is developing an artificial intelligence with focus on psychology of people that can be applied to healthcare and other application. Of course, my star company is NAPTA. It is one of the companies that I have really great admiration to, and Sophie is here. She will talk about her company, but this is a company that we have a lot of hopes in, and we as a technology park try to support and promote as much as we can. And it is on a hybrid model to support women health, and Sophie will speak about that. Another technologies we
Mr.
hope
Hussein,
to promote. Naam.
your screen is stuck. We can't see. Can you repeat the share screen? We can't see the slide.
Can you see the presentation or no?
No, we can't.
You cannot see the presentation at all?
No, we see only the front page. Can you put it full screen?
It is full screen.
Okay, can you cancel share screen and share again?
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, can you see it?
Yes, we're on the solar power. Yes.
Yes. So I don't know. I mean, let me try. So you haven't seen anything before? Adham?
No, we haven't. Now we see it. Yes.
Okay. So let me try and maybe redo it again quickly. So I was saying that the welcome to this webinar. It is hosted by the Sharjah Research and Technology Park. It's a Sharjah government initiative to foster innovation and technology transfer and create new venture that is focused on innovation and technology development. We have 4 objectives. The first objective is to develop and build innovation ecosystem, not only the buildings, but also the policies, the regulation, availability of funds, and other enablers to promote innovation. The second is to generate employment, develop human capital and talents across the region, so they basically excel to do what they want. The third objective is to catalyze knowledge economy, to promote and develop cutting-edge technologies like artificial intelligence, robotics, digitization, other in this part of the world, and invest in them. And last but not least, to invest in the future and create opportunities and companies that can help support our regional economies. I was saying that we believe in global vision and regional mission. We have partners from all over the world. We have a relationship with countries, with research institutions, with companies, with ecosystem build-up, as well as the United Nations. So we believe innovation only thrives when you have open innovation and work with others. We focus on 6 main areas: water technology, production design, architecture, mobility, and smart cities, digitization, renewable energy, and environmental technologies. Of course, because we have an emerging industry like healthcare, this is an industry that we are trying to promote. And today's session is about healthcare and the opportunities it creates within our region. And now we have some examples of the projects that we are hosting at the park and we are promoting. As I said earlier, we are hosting agriculture technologies, hydroponics, aquaponics, and vertical farming. This is a key industry that regional government is trying to promote for food security. And we are probably one of the leading organizations that promote research and development in this field. We are embedding different technologies like artificial intelligence to make these industries more efficient and productive and cost efficient. Another technologies we are promoting around artificial intelligence with focus on psychology, and we work with our partners, Virtue, who are from Spain. A third companies that we are very proud of is NAPTA, and Sophie is here to speak about her company. We are also promoting emerging technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality. The park will host probably the largest experiential center promoting VR and AR technologies that can apply to education, healthcare, and other. We're also promoting renewable energies, and we are hosting an R&D for solar and renewable energies. We have dedicated 2 floors of our main building for a maker space where we will have rapid prototyping, electronics, 3D machines to allow entrepreneurs, faculty members of universities, companies to come and co-create and co-invent together. We are very proud to share with you that during COVID-19, a month ago, we have used our 3D printers to create a face shield, and our company partners or our organization partner, Amensa, printed more than 450,000 face shields that were basically made available to our security forces and healthcare forces, which was amazing exercise. We're also hosting new fascinating entrepreneurs like Kafu. We are very proud of having Kafu in the park as well, which is a company that deliver gas by using your phone. They deliver basically petrol to your house or offices. I think you can see Kafu's brands everywhere. We work with them and also developing their technologies as well. The park is a host for all kinds of technologies. We do demonstration of new technologies. In this case, we have the autonomous buses that the park promotes. The park also working with Nokia and promoting 5G technologies. And we have a few cases related to healthcare and also crowd management that we are testing at the moment using 5G technology and working with Nokia. We are very proud in the park to be probably the largest additive manufacturing platform maybe in the region. At the park at the moment, we print plastic, we print metal, and we print houses and construction. So we are very proud of our ecosystem when it comes to additive manufacturing and 3D printing. The house that you see in the picture, this is a villa that we printed using 3D technologies and robotics. One of the flagship of our park is Skyway. Skyway is probably the biggest transport and logistics innovation center in the whole region. At the moment, we are testing in Sharjah, in the park, next generation train technologies. The picture down was done, it's a 400-meter testing for new type of pod. Now we are working on a 3 kilometers cargo next generation trains as well. So this is a transformational project for us that we are very proud of. We work with the United Nations and we try to build a collaboration with innovation center around the world. And we are very proud of this partnership. This is a quick picture of the type of companies and players we have in the park and we work with. We have partnership with Intel, with ABB, with Nokia. We have regional leading companies like Amensa and Kafu and others. So this is a park that started, I can say comfortably, we moved to our temporary offices in 2019. And I think I'll stop here. We'll be happy to ask more questions. Thank you very much. We do have, by the way, our accelerator, which is Advanced Industry Accelerator for those people who want to apply and take advantage of it. So I will stop here. And I think for the sake of time, I will ask my colleague Ahmed from Johnson & Johnson maybe to start his presentation. Thank you. You are on mute, Mr. Ahmed.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Hussein. Let me share again. And just want to start by thanking Mr. Hussein for organizing this and also for the broad audience who have tuned in today. I see people from different countries joining. I look forward for the collaboration and also the discussion. Mr. Hussein, congratulations. It's a definitely compelling vision, but more importantly, the execution and the practicality of that vision on the ground. So congratulations to you and the team. And we look forward to how this is going to progress and evolve. Today, this is not a typical innovation healthcare talk. We'll definitely touch on that during the course of the session. However, what I would like to share with you today, some of the observation and maybe some of the unstoppable trends shaping our lives and impacting healthcare in general. Patient, obviously, the most important element in the entire ecosystem, and also what we should be doing in response to that. And when I say what we should be doing, is what we should be doing collectively, because we all have a responsibility, regardless, which industry we belong to actually pay attention to what's happening on healthcare and the innovation around healthcare as well. Just before we start, just a quick disclaimer, if you wish, just to make sure we stay on the Angel side. So I will share some of the information, but this is not obviously J&J specific talk, and therefore the disclaimer. From a J&J perspective, to work in healthcare, you really need to be passionate of what you do. This is the real deal, day in, day out, we blend heart, science, ingenuity to profoundly change the trajectory of healthcare for humanity. So to be in this industry, in this field, one, it's a privilege. Two, it's a big responsibility that we take extremely, extremely seriously. As you probably know, Johnson & Johnson has the largest and most broadly based healthcare company in the world. So many of you probably know the consumer health sector and product that we have, but we're much more than this. Obviously, pharmaceutical is a huge element of what we do, and also the medical devices. And from medical devices, that's basically the sector I belong to. We have the most comprehensive surgical technology and the specialty solutions in the world, be it the surgical element, the orthopedic, the eye health, or the medical specialties when it comes to intervention for the cardiovasculars or the neurovascular diseases and so on. Probably another information not too many people know, we are basically one of the top companies in the world that actually invest heavily in R&D and innovation. And I'm talking about billions of dollars that get invested on a yearly basis, purely on R&D and innovation. As I said, this is not a typical innovation talk. I just want to set the scene, or maybe give you a better perspective. What you see on the screen is the first robot that was used for the first patient near Seattle in the US. And the key objective, this is, the coronavirus, obviously. And the key objective was, one, to treat the patient, but as importantly, to safeguard the doctors and the nurses. And this is example of how technology is actually evolving. If we take another example, which probably many people are actually familiar with, this is a picture for people who have actually queued, for hours and sometimes days to actually purchase their iPhone. This is not the first iPhone that came out. It's not even iPhone 10 or iPhone X. This is iPhone 11 that came out a few months ago. And we've seen this across. We've seen it, doesn't matter which region you belong to. We've seen it in UK, we've seen it in China, we've seen it in the US, we've seen it here. Actually, we had people flying all the way from India to Dubai to actually buy the iPhone 11. Now, if you look at an example like this, when technology, have the ability to change our reality, and when this reality is changed, we're completely changed. And we cannot go back and work with the old rules that used to be accepted in the past. Nobody can say now, listen, I refuse to work to live in the mobile digital world, and I need to go back and live in the old traditional world. It's not even an option, because reality have actually changed, and we as a humanity have changed along with it. There are two terms, probably some of you have actually heard about it, the digital natives and the digital immigrants. I am a digital immigrant. I'm not a digital native. I didn't grow up with technology. My kids are the digital natives. But if you take a look at the expectation of the digital natives are completely different from the expectation of the digital immigrants. They have completely different mindsets to what technology is all about, what they expect from it, how they use it, how they apply it to their life, be it, you know, their work life or even their personal life. This is my son, Anas, and as you can see at home, we have all the different gadgets you can actually think of. You know, we would be sitting around the dining table, and if he has a question, he wouldn't even ask us. He would go to Siri or Google Home or Alexa and ask the question. And again, it's a small example, but it gives you an indication how our reality has actually changed and what we should be doing in response to that. And I'll get to the healthcare and what that means from a healthcare perspective. 5G, and I'm sure Mr. Hussein alluded to it as well. It's absolutely critical for the next evolution of healthcare, because now all of a sudden, you know, you can do things that you've never been able to do in the past. Be it, you know, remote surgery, or be it telemedicine, telehealth. I mean, there's so many you can actually do with 5G, you know, while the other technology did not allow us to do. And this is obviously cross-industry, but it's very paramount from healthcare perspective. We love to socialize. I mean, as a human being, I mean, we just love to socialize. And this is why you see, I mean, there is a huge movement into the social media and what's happening. Some people, you know, consider it, this is not really impactful from a business or from an industry perspective, but it's extremely, extremely impactful, especially in healthcare. This is a picture for the MRI for a friend of mine. So he has a back problem, so he went to see an orthopedic. He did the MRI, and as soon as he, you know, left the orthopedic office, immediately he posted his MRI picture on Facebook, and he asked his network to actually comment whether, you know, he has a good disc, bad disc, whether he should go through an operation or not. So immediately you see, it's no longer the subject matter expert that used to be, you know, the source of truth and the source of recommendation. All of a sudden now we have a huge access to a global network of be it friend experts to actually get access to information and get advice to information, especially on healthcare. We probably think we know ourselves. Some people argue there are others that know us more than what we know ourselves. So I can tell you, you know, probably now Facebook or, you know, YouTube, since, you know, we're probably streaming on YouTube, they know how many have actually tuned in, their profile, where they're tuning in from, probably who's paying attention and who's not, because they can tell whether you're multitasking and so on. So to a large degree, you know, these organizations and that movement is becoming much more intelligent to the point where it has the ability to know the human being much more than what we know ourselves. They have the algorithm, they have the data, they have the computing power, and putting all this together, you would be amazed what you can actually get to. They can immediately tell your like, your dislike. They can sense your behavior. They can, you know, potentially know your health state if you post anything online. They can have, you know, an idea about what your disease progress is and so on. So it's amazing the knowledge and the power and where that knowledge and power exists and how we can potentially leverage it. This is the Kindle I think many people are actually used to. But in the past, you know, when you used to read a book, you were actually reading a book. Now, if you read something online, the book is actually reading you. And what I mean by this, now, if you're using Kindle or any other software to read something online, so they know which book you're reading, they know which chapter of the book you're reading, they potentially know how fast, you know, your reading is and which paragraph you're at. And potentially, if you stop at page 10, they know that you've actually stopped at page 10 and you've never went back and continued the reading of that book. Now, you may think this is, you know, trivial information, but put it in an ecosystem, the information could be massive. And if Kindle has, I don't know, a camera or potentially sensor and that can actually scan the facial expression on your face, they probably can tell if you read a line that made you angry or made you happy or made you cry, they can go into even the emotional state of the human being. And again, that's a very powerful example of technology and innovation and how this is progressing. I think this is something probably many people are actually used to by now. You know, Apple, and we work very closely with Apple, so now you can immediately monitor your heart rate, your AFib, and whether you can get also signs or warning if there is anything abnormal. Again, in the past, you used to go to a hospital, you have all these wires connected to your chest, and they made you do a stress test and so on. But I mean, with an Apple Watch, there's so much you can actually do nowadays. I know many probably know Angelina Jolie, but I think what many don't know about Angelina Jolie is she has gone through double mastectomy. So her mother had cancer. She passed away from cancer, and she did a DNA test, and she had a gene mutation that revealed, she has an 85% chance that she will ultimately develop cancer at one stage of her life. So what she did, and this is purely based on the algorithm and the data. So she had no cancer. She had no feelings of any pain. She was absolutely normal, but purely because she performed that test, and that test revealed that she has an 85% chance of actually developing cancer, she went ahead and she did a double mastectomy. She did the reconstruction of her breast, basically, and she's gone through preventive. So healthcare is no longer only you get sick, then you get cured. There is a possibility where before you can actually get sick, there's so many things you can actually perform. And I think she's a great example for many out there. And many of the ones actually followed her steps, and we've seen that's progressing as well. That's a great example of how we can move from a sick care to proactive and preventive care. Another example is borderless healthcare. I know this may seem probably too fetched for some, but this is something is definitely gaining momentum and something we should seriously look at. And I just put an example. Imagine if you have a patient in Jordan sending a tissue of his cancer tumor to an institute in the UAE that specializes in precision diagnostic. Then the UAE Institute has an established relationship with an institute in Netherlands that actually have clinical trials for that exact type of patient cancer. You can argue this model, you have a collective, well-connected healthcare system. All of it integrated together can actually have a better chance of healing that patient. So it's no longer what you have in the physical location where you're in. All of a sudden now you can have access to capability and potentially technology or potentially insights or ability to diagnose or treat that you've never had before. Look, I mean, today we trust Google search to tell us what's true. We trust Facebook and Instagram to tell us what's new. We trust Google Map to show us, the right direction from point A to point B. So with time, we got to trust the technology. I can tell you in the past, I used to trust my wife with direction. So we would drive and she would give the direction. But with time, we knew that, Google is much more accurate than my wife. And, the prediction of, I don't know, traffic congestion, accident, constructions, and so on. So I stopped obviously trusting my wife for the direction, and I, reverted back to Google. So again, as we trust the technology, I think you would see more and more applications of it. And if you take a look at cars, they're becoming point of care as well, be it with Tesla and others as well. So you may have sensors as you drive, or you may have seat belts that can actually predict heart attack for people with heart conditions. Your steering wheel could detect your blood pressure or maybe a drop in your blood sugar if you're diabetes and so on. So again, how you can actually apply technology, innovation, and healthcare beyond the traditional healthcare. And, I mean, some people say, there is, with technology and with innovation, there's a lot of downsides to what we do. I personally don't believe that's the case, because innovation and technology by design, it's not deterministic. You can use it as a source of good, or you can use it as a source of evil. And you can use nuclear technology to light up a city, as you can see on the right, and you can use the same technology to actually destroy a city, as you can see on the left. And same thing in healthcare. You can obviously apply technology, innovation, data to actually cure a patient with chronic diseases, or potentially you can use it to abuse, privacy and other forms. So by design, it's not deterministic. It's up to us how we use it. And if you take a look at healthcare in general, and I think the pandemic we're in is a great example, it's becoming more and more a global issue. I think, COVID-19 is definitely a global issue that could not be addressed at the local level and the regional level. But all the global issues, including the healthcare global issues, we need a regional mindset and a global mindset. I can tell you, nobody is brave enough today to say, listen, I'm going to beat COVID on my own, because you can't. If COVID exists in Far East, even in a small village, that could spread anytime to the rest of the world in no time. So you need to start looking at global problems, especially healthcare global problems, from a global mindset, or at least from a regional mindset, and bring the collective soul of the private and the public partnership around it to see how we can actually address it. And if you take a look, there's so many unsustainable issues with the healthcare system. Cost is obviously one of the big issues. We have increase in the chronic diseases, especially in the developed market and world, where we have an old growing population. So there's the state itself today. It's not healthy, obviously, but it's becoming more and more unsustainable. But I truly believe it's something we can actually collectively work on. You don't need an act of God. You don't need magic or miracle to actually solve it. It does depend on the collective soul of the different partners to come along and look into it. And I think it starts by looking at what are those priorities are. And I can tell you, today we have more people dying from sugar than dying from gunpowder. We have more people dying from cancer, be it colorectal or other type of cancer, than things that we pay attention to day in and day out. I'm not saying we start paying attention to the other activities, but we need to balance the agenda, and we need to start driving the priorities, and we need to educate the overall ecosystem around them. And innovation, if you take a look at it from an assets versus value, I think the analogy changed. I fly Emirates most of the time, and I can tell you, when I fly Emirates, when I book the ticket, I honestly don't know which plane I'm flying. Is it Airbus or Boeing? I don't know the type of the plane. Is it 380 or 777? I don't know the captain driving it. Is he, Canadian, Indian, British, Emirati? I don't know about the color of the seats, or potentially what movies I'm going to watch on it. I think, these are maybe to a certain degree important from experience perspective, but what I care about is the value Emirates provide. Will my flight leave on time, arrive on time? Will it be safe? Will it be clean? Will my luggage, get on time? What's the overall experience from the crew and so on. So I care about the value Emirates provide more than the assets Emirates provide. So, and I think this is something we need to start paying attention to. We need to look at healthcare from a value perspective rather than from a price perspective or from an asset perspective. Moving on. And I can tell you there's so many different products. Obviously, we have, the greatest products when it comes to healthcare. And, this is obviously not the time to discuss them, but, what's important to note is we look at these from an end-to-end perspective, from a platform perspective. We don't look at it purely from an isolated product or an isolated solution. We look at the patient journey from an end-to-end, and how do we fix that journey. And let me give you an example. We have the best knees in the world. We're known for this. This is not something. This is the best product you can ever find. But I always give this example just to bring the picture closer. Even though we may have the best knee and we have the best technology when it comes to knee construction and so on, but the knee product that we have by itself, if will not going to be enough in the entire journey. We need the best knee. We need the best surgeon, processing the surgery. We need the best processes in terms of patient outcomes. We need potentially the rehab and the physiotherapy that needs to take place. So you need to look at this from a patient end-to-end perspective. You need the patient awareness, the education, and so on. So if you look at innovation purely from a product perspective rather than an end-to-end perspective, there is always something you would actually miss. Mr. Hussein also spoke about innovation and how we can leverage, VR and other capability. This is something we leverage very heavily, and definitely we see it more and more the norm, if you wish, moving forward, especially now, with what's happening with the lockdown and the physical isolation and so on. So those capability definitely would be of a great value as we move on. And look, I mean, a lot of people talk about innovation and perfection. For me, it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be good enough. If whatever innovation we're developing is going to actually leapfrog, the value we provide to patient, to customer, for me, that's a great start. And I always give the example of Tesla. A lot of people say, listen, it's a self-driving car. It has the ability to potentially harm pedestrian and so on. And I give this example today. We have 1.25 million people dying from car accident. 90% are actually from human mistakes. If we were able to bring that down by half, that's, for me, it's a huge achievement. Again, when you look at innovation, when you look at technology, definitely we need to aim for perfection, especially when it comes to patient safety and people safety and so on. But at the same time, you need to always assess what's the cost of not actually bringing that innovation to life, because we have responsibility, be it from a customer perspective or a patient perspective, to save as many lives as we possibly can. And again, I mean, there is this fear of innovation. People believe it's hard, it's complex, it's costly. Some of the best, innovation and technology we implemented were completely the other way around. So it doesn't have to be costly, it doesn't have to be complex, and it doesn't.
I think, Ahmed, if I may, I think just for the sake of the time, how many slides do you have more?
I think I'm almost done. Hussein.
Okay, thank you.
Almost done. Again, for us, technology innovation is big and small. So we're very choiceful, which technology and innovation we pick. We have internal innovation, but also we tap into external innovation. And probably some of you, we have the innovation centers, we have the J Labs, we partner with a lot of companies. We have over 600 residents in our J Labs Innovation Center. It's something that we take extremely seriously, and we invest a lot of time and money and efforts to shape, because those companies, startups, they may have great ideas, but they may not have the capability and the expertise and the needs to actually bring those to life. Just to close on, I think, look, for us, technology and innovation is the how of J&J, but humanity is the why, and that's basically why we do what we do. So we start with the why, and for us, technology and innovation is part of the how. And maybe just a few bullets to close off. We have obviously changed as a society, and we need to keep this as we innovate, as we bring product, services, and solution. We need to keep in mind that digital natives are taking over, and we need to factor this in everything we do and deliver. Let's make sure innovation is a force of good, because as I said, innovation by itself, it's not deterministic. It's up to us how we use it. Let's make sure we have our priorities set and we collaborate around those priorities, and make sure we create shared value for everybody in the ecosystem. How can we make sure the patient, the payers, the families, the communities, the society is better off. And also, we need to make sure we don't become insular. We only look internally. We need to also broaden our view, and we look externally. And obviously, and the most important thing is we keep, patient at the heart of everything we do and deliver. Look, I just want to close off by, I want to first thank the frontline healthcare workers. you know, people who are actually risking their lives, you know, staying away from their families to protect all of us in this difficult time. But also I want to thank all of you who've tuned in. I hope you found this is insightful, useful, and something to reflect on and put into practice in one way or another. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed, for this wonderful presentation. Very insightful, and I think you've basically painted a beautiful picture of how this industry is evolving, and also the real essence of developing innovation is really, and how human sits in the center of whatever technology we develop. I will move now to Sophie. I think she is a bright example of an entrepreneur who is trying to push the boundary and come up with new innovations that will transform our healthcare and the opportunities associated with healthcare. So, Sophie, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. Ahmed, as you were speaking, I was slowly deleting slides. So I now have 5 slides to share with you. I'm going to talk very briefly about what we do. And Ahmed has made many very relevant points. Were a couple of the ones that he touched on were some of the burdens that are currently placed on our healthcare ecosystem, and I will talk about one of these specifically. I think the other point that I would like to make actually is that in this very diverse world that we live in, where access to technology is quite it's eclectic and different. At the moment, still about 66 million women in Mina do not have access to mobile internet, where the vast majority of us would take fast mobile internet access for granted. It's possible to innovate in ways, in small ways, and in ways where the technology is really not visible at all, that has a massive impact on a large number of people's lives. And so we are interested in thinking big, and in many ways acting small. And I'm going to give one example of one of the things that we're doing that does precisely this. So the specific challenge that we're focused on is the increasing prevalence of non-communicable disease, which in layman's terms are underlying health conditions, or you might know them as lifestyle diseases. They are things such as obesity, cardiovascular disease, cancer, responsible for 71% of deaths globally each year, and this is estimated to increase. Now, lifestyle diseases are a kind of a tricky thing to comprehend, because they're creeping. You know, you don't suddenly catch a lifestyle disease as you would a communicable disease. They creep up on you over years. And so, you know, the decisions that you make today.
Sophie, can I ask you if you can raise a little bit your voice?
Sure.
Yeah,
I can. I might also move a little bit closer to my speaker, which will require me to do like this.
Yeah, no, perfect. This is perfect now.
Okay, great. So yeah, they're difficult to kind of pin down, but to give you some idea of context, since the start of 2020, about 400,000 people, just over now, have died from COVID-19. In that same time period, about 18 million people have died from non-communicable diseases. So the impact they have on existing healthcare systems, where increasingly, you know, healthcare systems are having to create more and more specialized facilities to deal with these conditions, is significant. It means that there isn't the capital available to spend on other things, like, for example, having enough personal protective equipment in stock to deal with a pandemic such as the one that we're seeing now. They also put people at risk for communicable diseases. So according to the data from the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control in the United States, about 78% of all ICU admissions and 94% of all COVID-19 deaths have been in people with underlying health conditions. So not only do they place a huge burden on healthcare ecosystems, but they also make us more at risk as a society to pandemics such as the one that we're living through right now. which brings me on to who we are and what we do. Many of you, I think, will know who we are already, but we discover new ways as NABTA Health for women to prevent, identify, and manage non-communicable disease. There are several things that make us a little bit different. Firstly, we are very proudly by and for the women of Mina, headquartered in Sharjah Research Technology Innovation Park, and our ultimate vision is to build a global trusted leader in women's health out of the UAE. We have developed our platform around the pivotal stages in a woman's life. We care about the things that are important to women, and we try to incorporate them into everything that we design and everything that we build. So privacy, autonomy, convenience. Our pitch to women is, imagine you were the answer to every pain you ever felt, to all of the appointments that you couldn't make time for, etc. And I saw that there was a question came up from the floor around human versus artificial intelligence, and will one replace the other? And we definitely do not believe this to be true. When we talk about applied machine learning in the context of healthcare, we talk about an augmented intelligence. So it's not about replacing clinicians. And in fact, that's the premise upon which our model of hybrid healthcare is built. We combine digital and traditional healthcare to improve health outcomes, but the digital is not replacing the traditional. So it's about helping clinicians to do their jobs better and to make our interactions with the healthcare ecosystem more efficient. And ultimately, our aim, I guess, is to enable individuals and women to own their own healthcare. So to understand how their symptoms tie together, to be aware of the different diagnosis options available to them, to be able to control to an extent their own treatments, and really to manage their health with a kind of vision of the short, medium, and long term. As I said, we have developed a model of hybrid healthcare. We coined the term back in the summer of 2018. The head of innovation at INSEAD picked up on our model of hybrid healthcare. They're now doing a couple of case studies on it. We have a book with Springer on hybrid healthcare that is coming out this year, that talks about basically the combination of digital and traditional healthcare in multiple different sectors. The way that we are trying to improve healthcare in the context of underlying health conditions is by taking the way that you are treated today, you're diagnosed and treated today, which is predominantly a provider-led activity, i.e. you go and see a doctor, the doctor tells you what your symptoms are, he diagnoses you, he or she, gives you or prescribes you some drugs to treat you, and you walk away. We're trying to make that user-led and user-centric. So you work to prevent the development of underlying health conditions. You, with point-of-care tests, so these are tests that you can use at home, remote monitoring devices, wearable devices, you identify underlying health conditions that you have, and then you make the decision to change your diet and lifestyle patterns to manage those non-communicable diseases. Potentially you do them with the help of something called prescription digital therapeutics, which are drug-free alternatives for treatment. So an example of a digital therapeutic might be something like the low carb program that was developed by diabetes.co.uk in the UK. It's a program, 12-week program that's now been tested with 438,000 individuals, and it has a 25% remission rate for type 2 diabetes, with also significantly great success rates in terms of getting people off existing drug regimens and making them more independent in the management of their condition. Traditionally, you might have been prescribed metformin to manage diabetes or to support you with weight loss. So this is the space that we work in, and I want to give you an example of how it's possible to make a big change by doing something relatively small. And I'm going to use the example of testing, actually. One of the things that COVID-19 has done is it has made people much more aware of the fact that actually they can do many things relating to their health from the comfort of their own home. And we thought prior to COVID that this was a cultural mind shift that would take many years, I guess, to make happen. And COVID-19 has really accelerated it. One of the things that people have realized they can do from home is actually they can do tests. So you can take blood, or you can have a phlebotomist come to your home. They can do a blood for you. You can send it off to a lab, and then you can get the results. There's no need to go into a clinic, no need to go into a lab, no need to potentially expose yourself to COVID-19. So testing at home, which is one part of our first care pathway, is the next generation for clinical diagnostics. So These are direct to consumer tests that are sold to consumers, that are performed by consumers, that don't require you to have any kind of encounter with a lab or a clinic at all. It allows you to get tested anytime, anywhere. The whole testing process from booking the test to being guided through completing the test by yourself to then getting the results is technology enabled. Again, it adheres to our privacy, autonomy, convenience mandate. Because this type of testing uses significantly smaller volumes of blood, you can do it for a fraction of current market rates, and it supports you as conscious consumers by reducing the amount of waste plastic and other disposables that you might use if you were to be tested in a lab environment or a clinic within a clinic. And on the little things make a big difference point. This is just some like very tangible examples about how using a small volume of blood, so and this is blood from a finger prick, squeeze a few drops, put it in a tube, send it off to a lab, versus a traditional draw where you might have a phlebotomist do it, has a significant impact in terms of many different things from an expense and a convenience point of view. And I've given some examples here. So as we launch home testing here in the region, we'll offer 2 panels to women initially, and then more of a kind of an analyte by analyte approach. So we'll allow women to get tested for iron, vitamin D, specific things that they're worried they might be deficient in. But our 2 panels are a well woman panel and a balanced woman panel. So focused on your overall wellness and focused on your hormone levels. And within the wellness panel, the cost of getting a test done for ferritin with us is £2.50 US. If you went into a lab today, it would cost you $34 US. The cost for a vitamin D test is $8.25. If you went into a lab today, it would cost you $40 US. And so what this means is that, I mean, in an insurance, in a market like ours where there's mandatory insurance, you know, maybe you don't think twice about how much it costs you to get tested for things that could be vital clues for your health. But in markets where insurance is not mandatory and there are a lot of people who aren't covered by insurance, the ability to reduce such a fundamental thing like lab-based testing by, you know, by 80%, even by 90% in some instances is pretty critical. So innovations can be big, they can be very tangible, they can involve robotics and printing and a lot of things that you can see and touch and feel. But with the application of machine learning and the application of some of the, I guess, less tangible forms of technology, you can also have a big impact.
Thank you, Sophie, for a great presentation. I would like to maybe open the floor for questions and answers, but maybe I could ask a few questions, and I like to start with Mr. Ahmed. There are a lot of speculation and prediction of how our healthcare system will change going forward. So if I to ask you, what are, from your perspective, the top 3 changes we will see, let's say, in the next 12 to 24 months?
Okay, look, that's a great question. So saying, I always say, you know, it's up to us to decide what the future will look like, i.e. us collectively. But just to be more pragmatic, I think what COVID did, and if you want to focus probably on the positive, it has accelerated, especially in healthcare, it has accelerated the transformation from innovation and technology perspective. So what we've seen in a matter of 2 to 3 months, usually we would see in probably 5 to 10 years. So COVID, to a degree, has actually expedited or accelerated the transformation within healthcare. I think we're seeing today, immediately as we speak, I mean, you know, how we're leveraging digital health, you know, be it telemedicine or telehealth. There's a lot of application when it comes to, you know, machine learning, AI, STEM, you know, is becoming more and more, not only for the healthcare industry, but pretty much for many other industry. So I think we'll see a rapid move into many of the technological capability that we've never been brave enough to go that route. And probably the COVID-19 has actually helped us, or pushed us, if you wish, forward. We'll see less and less risks. So, for example, it would be a shame not for us to learn how we can protect, for example, our staff and healthcare medical staff in the future. You can easily leverage, robots, or many of the activities could be done remotely to take, a patient temperature and so on. So there's a lot of capability where you can actually protect. There's a monitoring, performance monitoring capability where you can leverage for education. So for example, there's a lot of capability where you can actually, surgeries could be recorded, evaluated, surgeons could be upskilled from a skills perspective. So be it on how you deliver care, be it on the education piece, be it on the surgery piece, or be it on the non-surgery piece, we're going to see huge development and evolution, which already started, but we're going to see huge acceleration moving forward.
Thank you. Let me check on the questions. Sophie, there is a question for you. It says, are these tests now available in the UAE?
Shaina, they will be available come September.
Perfect.
So as everyone gets back after the summer break.
Okay. There is another question from Hind, and this is, I will probably direct it for both of you. It says, what do you think of the potential role of innovation stream like AI, big data, machine learning, VR to improve the mental and psychological health?
I think there's huge potential, particularly with things like post-traumatic stress disorder. For example, we're seeing increasingly that virtual reality can be used to retrain your brain or help you to cope in stressful situations in different ways. PTSD involves identifying triggers, essentially, things in your day-to-day life that that remind you of the incident that you're effectively trying to forget, and your ability to identify and deal with those triggers is what ultimately leads to your recovery from something like post-traumatic stress disorder. So I think that the application of VR here is huge, and in many spaces as well outside of mental and psychological health. For example, a lot of new mothers struggle initially with coping when exposed to certain, I guess, childhood behaviors or scenarios for the first time. A good example might be burns. The instinctive reaction, as reported by many mothers, if a child has boiling water poured over them, is to remove their clothes. But actually, this isn't the first thing you should do. It can take the skin off with it. You should put them under a cool running tap and leave them there for a long time. But obviously, if this is something you're encountering for the first time, it's very difficult to remember necessarily something other than your instincts tell you. So again, in using virtual reality, where you are able to encounter potentially multiple times these sorts of scenarios and train yourself to respond in a particular way, it can and will and is already proving very effective.
Thank you. Mr. Ahmed, I have a couple of questions. The first question says, how you see the use of X-ray technologies in the healthcare in the future? What is the development of the X-ray? And there is a more generic question that says, what initiative have Johnson & Johnson taken to connect with community? Do you think there is a big need for skills enhancement of internal and external stakeholders? And if yes, how do you plan to address these? Okay.
On the first question, so the first question, if you repeat the first question, Mr. Hussain, it's related to the
X-ray technologies, yes.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, there's a huge development in that specific space. There's obviously more to come. We're obviously one of the companies who are actually investing heavily in how you leverage those X-rays or MRIs and so on. From the outset, if you take a look at it today, those images if you run them through, be it, 3D imaging, or maybe, advanced imaging if you wish, or if you apply certain machine learning or AI capability to them, you would have a better view of, be it, the organs or the treatment, or potentially, an advanced visualization as well. So there's a lot of activities happening on that front. Definitely, you'll hear more about it, but I see huge potential myself, because it can help you with the diagnosis. Because I can tell you, many of the issues healthcare face is the ability to diagnose properly. So let's say if you have, a colorectal cancer patient, your ability to diagnose whether that patient has colorectal cancer or not. Now with imaging and how you leverage X-rays, be it CT scans or MRIs, and how do you advance those imaging, it could be extremely, extremely powerful to recommend potential treatment or potential surgery, which otherwise you would not have recommended. So lots of great work happening on that front. I'm not quite sure I fully got the second question. It's to do with what we're doing from a community perspective, Mr. Hussain?
Yes.
I mean, if you take a look at our credo, I mean, our first responsibility, obviously, to the patient mothers, the doctors, the nurses, and so on. The second responsibility for our employees, and the third responsibility for the community. So we're a huge advocate of, the work that we need to do in the community, especially on multiple fronts, be it on the women empowerment. And Sophie, thank you very much for what you're doing. I can tell you the best way to empower women is to actually make sure women are healthy. And what you and the team do is absolutely on that line. And we thank you and the team for what you do. There's a lot of activities we do across. Obviously, we're very concerned of many of the activities taking place worldwide, the equality. And there's so much we're doing on that front, and we continue to do. We're part of the community. I mean, we are 100% embedded in the community. That's where our families, our friends, our daughters, sisters, brothers. So we are very entrenched in the community, and there's a lot of activities happening on that front, be it from women empowerment, or be it from equality, or be it what we do from disease state management or education awareness, and so on. And we work very closely with the public and the private sector. We truly believe in the partnership between the two sectors, and how the industry should come together collectively to address some of those issues, be it from healthcare perspective or from social community perspective as well.
Thank you, Ahmed. I think Sophie raised the point that the question was about XR, and I read it X-ray, but she clarified that XR means mixed realities. So I think the question was about virtual reality. I think it's already getting 7:15. So I would like to maybe finish with this question, and maybe allow for a minute conclusion from both of you. So I guess the question was, what is the future of mixed realities, VR and AR and others, when it comes to healthcare?
The important thing to remember is, with all of these things, technology is an enabler. Our aim as people in the healthcare industry is to improve health outcomes, and we can never lose sight of that. So if there is a specific problem that we're trying to solve, and an XR or any kind of technology enabler appears to be a good solution, then we should consider it. But if we deviate from our ultimate aim, which is to improve population health and support advances in medicine, we're not doing our jobs. And on that note, Hussain, if you don't mind, I'm going to drop off, or I will be a single mother. Thank you very much for having me.
No, I thank you very much, Sophie, and I think I'm going to get you in trouble, and Ahmed, because we should have had him a disclaimer when he was talking about his wife versus Google. So thank you, Sophie. You can go, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed. If you want to say anything.
Yeah, maybe quickly on the mixed reality. Look, I mean, it goes back to what I said earlier. From a technology perspective, it's a great technology. How you apply it, how you use it, is basically would be my my focus. We focus on ethical and purpose-driven innovation. And if you look at mixed reality from that perspective, absolutely, it has a huge potential, be it on the education piece or potentially on the engagement piece, i.e., if I take healthcare, you can now look at mixed reality where you can have surgery, being done by experts from, I don't know, Cleveland Clinic in the US and Cleveland Clinic in the UAE, or, it has a huge potential. For me, it's the important thing is it's ethically being used, it's purposely being used, and it's not being abused as a technology. So it has huge potential, and definitely it's something we give a great value to.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. We are also very proud at the park to, as I said earlier, to establish one of the largest XR experiential center in the region, where we have virtual reality and augmented reality in one place that will be also open for universities and companies and entrepreneurs to leverage. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Ahmed, for your time and for your great insights. And also Sophie, she left, so we are very much appreciative of your time, and also our participants' time. I hope they found the session useful, and I wish everyone all the best. On behalf of Sharjah Research and Technology Park, we thank you all and wish you a good day. And thank you, Mr. Ahmed.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain. Thank you.